You're gonna hang swarm traps. Good job. There's 5 things you're gonna want to have. 1, a good location. 2, lemongrass oil. 3, propolis. 4, some friends. And 5, a plan to get it back down. Let's do this thing. Hey guys, Elizabeth, the curly-haired country gal here. This is my first year doing beekeeping of any kind, and it's also my first year doing natural beekeeping, where I'm going to be keeping bees in horizontal hives, as opposed to the standard stacking Langstroth hives. I'll talk more about that in another video, but in this video we get to hang swarm traps! So I was busy painting these yesterday, and you can check out the other video where the kids and I were working on that, and it was fun and stressful and fun. Interestingly, this isn't just an aesthetic thing, but it actually helps the bees when it's their permanent home to be able to find it more easily, especially if you have mini hives. So number 1, you're gonna want a good location. Now, Dr. Leo suggested putting your swarm traps about 10 feet or maybe even a little higher. It sounds like ideally you'll be 12 to 15 feet up in the air. He said that studies seem to indicate that it doesn't really matter once you're at 10 feet, if you're at 10 feet or 50 feet, but just somewhere at that place is kind of optimal, that height is kind of optimal. Now, my caveat with that is that thanks to the Layens group on Facebook, thanks guys, many people gave testaments of being able to catch swarms at a much lower height, even on the ground. So one of the moderators, I think it was Andrew, thanks Andrew, pointed out that it just really depends on your area and kind of how picky the bees can be. So I live in a really forested area, and I think around here the bees can be a little bit pickier. I'm only a couple hours from Dr. Leo, so that's why, especially my first year, I wanted to do everything by the book and go ahead and just put them 10 feet up. The very first time I was climbing up that ladder to put the first swarm trap up, I was thinking, I'm gonna figure out a better way to do this. And by better, I mean safer. One person mentioned in the group that she caught a hive, like it almost sounded like it was on accident, off the back of her ATV in a swarm trap that she was gonna go hang up. So if the bees find the swarm traps appealing on the ground level, or even 18 inches, 2 feet, 5 feet off the ground, then great, catch some swarms that way. But if you need to go higher, then here are some tips. Now, in nature, bees often look for the cavity of a tree to build their hive in. So if you're looking for a tree to put a swarm trap in, you actually don't want one that's super lush and green with tons of foliage, which is actually what I kind of thought just because of the shade aspect of it. But bees are looking for trees or parts of trees that are dead so that they would be hollowed out. So you want to find one that has a lot of empty branches. So that's the first thing, find a tree with fewer branches. Second, and kind of along those lines, you want it to be a highly visible tree. Another thing to keep in mind kind of along those lines is that it's helpful if it's right on a roadway or right on the edge of a meadow. Just easy visibility, not only for you but also for the bees to be able to find it easy. The third thing to keep in mind are the trees themselves. The species of tree isn't important, and just kind of a practical note is that it helps if you put it right in a fork of the tree. That'll be a really stable place to put it. So the fourth thing to keep in mind is where on the tree to place it. So Dr. Leo recommended putting the trap on the north side of a tree, and other people have recommended this too, just so that it's not in direct sunlight, so you wouldn't want to put it on the south side, making the entrance face south or east. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure how you can have it on the north side of a tree but face it south. So we'll see, but those are some recommendations, to have it be on the north side or to have it be facing east or south. So I'll probably try to make it face east. Number 5, the proximity of other swarm traps. Something Dr. Leo mentioned, and I think other natural beekeepers and just beekeepers in general say that if you have just one property like we do here, putting multiple swarm traps on the same property is basically just like having one. And Dr. Leo even mentioned that sometimes if you have too many swarm traps, it's almost like there's too many options for the bees and they'll actually go somewhere else to find a home, which is kind of interesting to me. But you want to space out the swarm traps at least a mile. The sixth thing is when to hang the swarm traps. So some people have them up most of the year, put them up or have them ready and up about 6 weeks after the first bloom. And there's a whole explanation that Dr. Leo gave about why that is, based on the queen sensing when spring is going to be coming and starting to lay brood, and then once they hatch, then there's 3 weeks before they even emerge as are ready to be forager bees. So 6 weeks after the first bloom, which I think is right about where we are. I think some people in my area have already been have already had their swarm traps out and have been catching them, so I feel a little behind, but I think I'm right in that time frame. So 6 weeks after the first bloom, all the way until 6 weeks before the first frost. And again, that's a pretty late time to catch swarms, because again, even if they get into the swarm trap and start if the queen starts laying eggs right away and they hatch, then 6 weeks from then is when the frost is going to hit, and that's not really enough time for them to build up any sort of store for the winter of honey, but at least they have a chance. Another important thing about where to place the swarm traps is that you want them within a 1/4 mile of a permanent water source, because the bees obviously need to carry water as well, and they can't carry water as far of a distance as they can carry pollen, so you'll want to get it close to a water source. So where I've been looking, I've been asking some friends if we can have swarm traps at their properties, and I'm checking with all of them, do you have a creek on your property, or do you have a pond nearby? We have a creek here, so that'll be great for our swarm trap. So one last note before I show you how we're going to bait the hives and lure the bees who don't have a home to their new home is that you can be ready to replace a swarm trap that has caught a hive with a different swarm trap, because it might be a really good location for it. Number 2, you're going to want to use the lemongrass essential oil. So when I saw this essential oil on Dr. Leo's website, the first thing I thought was, well, I could just get my own essential oil, put it on a cotton swab or something and put it in the hive. You have to be careful not to make it too strong, otherwise that can actually repel the bees, because their sense of smell is 100 times at least stronger than ours. And so that's why we have these slow release tubes. On the website, Dr. Leo recommends using 2 per hive, half full each, so that's what I'm going to do. I didn't get any super clear directions on exactly where to place it in the hive, so I'm just going to put one on either side, I think, and just do my best with that. Okay, so Pro, come over here. So we're going to take the lemongrass essential oil, put this little pipette in, and fill each of the lure tubes, the slow release tubes, halfway. Oh, that was too much. And then we close it up.
Wow, that smells yummy.
Okay. Stop.
Can
You
I
ready?
do that?
Yep. And we're not going to do all that. Just gently squeeze. Look at that. Let's take this out and put it down there in the bottom. Yeah, just set it on the ground. Oh, sorry, Gid. And then let's go ahead and put one in this back corner.
Right here?
Just in the back corner. Alrighty. 3, you can also add propolis. Not essential, but helpful and really important thing to put in your swarm traps is this propolis. And then with the propolis, we need to heat it up, as the directions say on the front, to 220 for 5 minutes, and just rub it on the inside walls of the hive. Each of these can bait 4 swarms. So I have 6 swarm traps, so that'll be just about right. I think I might just go ahead and use it all up. And hopefully, Lord willing, I'll be able to collect more this year, because this is what the bees use to insulate their hive come the winter. So the reason that you put this in the swarm trap is because if a bee goes to it and they smell this, or they sense it and see it, they're gonna think, oh, okay, other bees have found this to be a good home, so this could be a good home for us. Meanwhile, the kids are playing Ring Around the Tree. Okay, let's go melt it.
Alright.
So to warm up this propolis, I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I remembered that Dr. Leo said it's fine to warm it up in the microwave. So I went ahead and took both bags, combined it into this glass bowl. I started by just doing 30 seconds. It was still pretty solid. I did it for another 30 seconds. It was starting to melt, but I thought it was heating up a little bit too quickly. So then I did 1 more minute at power 5 or 50% power, and then that was really where it started to kind of melt down and get into this kind of elasticy, putty, Play-Doh-y consistency. So I broke it into 4 piles, so each of those piles I'm going to break in half to rub into these swarm traps. You gonna help us today, Bubba? June, Bubba? Okay, I just warmed it back up. So now it's malleable again. So now I gotta hurry.
We have to hurry.
Okay, so I'm hoping I'm doing this right. What seemed to be a workable solution was to just kind of mash it on the wall. I thought that it would be spread more evenly, but I just kind of made a little pile of it on the walls. 4, not necessary, but really helpful to have some great friends to help you like we did. Thanks, John and Paul and Teddy. And of course, my husband Jared was a huge help. Thanks, Jared, I love you. Okay, ran into a couple hiccups. We got here, we brought the ratchet straps, we brought the screwdriver, or the drill driver, we brought the screws, we brought scrap wood, and I forgot the level! So I just ran and got a level. Thanks, Paul, you're the best. So now I'm gonna try to get this hung. Okay, so the first attempt is somewhat of a failure. I'm feeling kind of discouraged and disappointed, and there's a lot of adrenaline. It was harder than I expected. We got it up, we found this tree. It's actually kind of on the south side, but there's a branch that's right in front of it to kind of block the sun. It's right in the creek, which I thought would be good, but I just can't get it level, and there's a bunch of noise from the neighbors using a chainsaw, and I'm ready to give up and try an easier tree. Hey, thanks so much for watching my video. I appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it or learned something, can you just like it down below? Thanks. And number 5, something I didn't think about until afterwards, was you're gonna wanna have a plan to get it down. So what I'm gonna be using is this levee system that I made, so you can check out the video for that. But just think about a way to get it down safely, because it's not worth losing life and limb to get some swarms for your apiary. But what I have planned is to use a harness and pulley system to carefully and safely lower the swarm trap back down using a 10-inch hook drilled into the tree. So definitely brainstorm that. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Now you know 5 things you gotta have when you're hanging your swarm traps: a good location, lemongrass, propolis, some good friends, and a way to get it down. We'll catch you next time. Bye.